Hello and welcome to the Shooting Show. I'm Ben Bruce, and each and every week I'm going to be delving into the world of gamekeeping, sporting rifle, from air gunning to even a little bit of airsoft thrown in for good measure. Plus, we might take a look at some of the things that you might not necessarily relate to shooting, but we think might just tickle your fancy. I'm a big believer in honesty, in starting out on the right foot. And by doing that, I think it's only fair that I tell you the truth. I know nothing about shooting. Now, I know that might put you off, but don't let it. As a 30-something Guardian reading socialist with a house rabbit, I'm exactly the sort of person shooting needs to appeal to. It's my mission then to head out and find some of the most respected names in shooting to find out more about the world of shooting. And my first port of call is the face of Gamekeeper's Diary, Geoff Garrod, who's out on squirrel control with his two sons.
A bit warm. Well, what we've got today, we're just going to finish up the last of the squirrel drying. We've done most of it early on in the year when it was cold, had a bit of snow about, but one or two woods just got left behind, so we're going to do that today. I've got my two young lads who's going to do the shooting. Unfortunately, I get left to do all the drying and humping all the poles around. That's what you get when you're a dad, isn't it? And we're just going to do this wood, see what we can get, just see what happens. I mean, we've had one on the way in, shot one on the way in, so we've got one in the bag. And we'll just see what happens.
Since 1931, there has been an active campaign in Britain to reduce the number of grey squirrels, starting with the aptly, if not imaginatively titled, Anti-Grey Squirrel Campaign. And since 1933, it's been illegal to import, release or keep captive grey squirrels without a licence. There's perhaps an understanding in some quarters that the squirrel is a harmless animal. It's a guy who lives up a tree and nibbles his nuts. So why is it that we have to control the squirrel's population? What problems do they cause?
The woods have all got forestry plans, and that can involve clear felling, coppicing, thinning, replanting, and you can't have squirrels, the amount of squirrels about, when you've got new trees going in, because they feed up trees, they debark trees, and once a tree has been debarked all the way around, that tree will eventually die. What you need to do, Josh, if you stand to there, shut your gun and keep it pointing upwards, right? You go and stand that side there, Justin, and do the same, shut your gun, point upwards.
It's not just the culling of squirrels that's important. Even an empty dray is a prize worth taking. But why? What good does it do to create a load of transient squirrels with no homes? I mean, surely that's just pikifying them.
When we come to do it again next year as part of our squirrel control, if we see a dray in a tree, we know it's a fresh one because we've already pushed the old ones out.
Okay, so it's not quite a case of my big fat gypsy squirrel. There's a definite logic to it, and Geoff certainly handles his pole well. I wonder if he's ever had any problems with his rod.
Yeah, one of the worst things to happen when you're drying is that. So you've got most of the poles out, and that's hanging up in the tree. Because try as you might, that'll just hang there. That'll be on the thinnest of flimsiest of branches, that'll be hanging there. And then you have to try and push it out with the poles that are acting like a big fishing rod with a 50-pound fish on it. Or the worst come to the worst, I have had to climb trees. You don't want to be around in the area when I come down from it either.
I know what he's saying. I hate it when my rod gets stuck in the wrong bush. But let's stop concerning ourselves with rods and poles and move on to nuts munching rodents, one of whom has made the unwise mistake of being spotted by Geoff's eagle-eyed sons. So, apart from being a bit nifty with a shotgun, what have the lads learnt from their dad?
Ever since we started shooting, he's told us that safety's the #1 thing. Like just breaking the gun when you're not using it and making sure that the safety's on. Over the years we've found out that it's normally a game of patience, especially when you get squirrels and they're hiding around the trees and you've got to like manoeuvre around just to get a good shot on them.
And Dad knows exactly how to put that into practice.
If there's only two of you and they're hiding behind a tree, you just need one person to stay still with a gun and the other person to walk around a tree, because you'll notice them. What they'll do, you'll see a little tiny bit of them, but as you move round, they'll keep watching you because you're moving, so they'll just move around the tree again. So as you move round, they move round, and then eventually they'll come in sight of the one with the gun, and you can sort of walk them into the trap basically. So, you know, they keep watching you, but they don't realise that there's someone else there. There's a, what was that? There's a gap in the tree there, look boys. So Justin, if you come round here, you can stand over there. Josh, you go and stand over the other side over there, mate.
And before the day's done, another squirrel makes the mistake of showing himself.
All right, you're all right there. Shut your gun, because I tell you, just get yourself ready, that's it. Yeah, what was that? So I think we've got about a dozen, 15, something like that. But it's a dozen of 15 that goes on to the total, which helps me all the way through the year. It's part of my ongoing squirrel control. So yeah, it's definitely been worthwhile.
Finally, the question I've been waiting all day to ask. Have you ever eaten squirrel?
I mean, you know, I've never tasted one, but they do say that it tastes quite nutty if something can taste nutty, but I've never tasted one, got no desires to taste one.
I've got a feeling that's a question we'll be asking again on this show. And something we'll be doing every week on the show is bringing you the latest news from the world of shooting. So it gives me great pleasure for the first time to cross over to Sarah with the news.
This is the news. The highly controversial badger cull is once again in jeopardy, as campaigners from the Badgers Trust have won a judicial review on DEFRA's plans for the cull, with June 2012 being the most likely date for the case to be heard. The ISSF World Cup Series has been taking place in London as part of the London Prepare Series for this year's coming Olympics. Wei Ning secured victory in the women's skeet, with Britain's Eleanor Allen finishing 8th, while Swede Stefan Nilsson won the men's event. Korean Lee Dae-myeon won the men's 10-metre air pistol, with fellow countrywoman Kim Jang-mi claiming the prize in the women's 25-metre pistol. There were also victories for France, Germany and Taipei. The Clay Shooter of the Year awards were dished out early this spring, with the much coveted prizes being handed to the women's FITAS team, Amber Hill, Peter Wilson, Jason Alloway, Jim Doherty and George Digweed, MBE, who had this to say about the sport.
We need to encourage outside interest to promote our sport, make it more professional and move it forward. All of the sponsorship and everything that we tend to get now comes from within the industry, so it's very insular. And I think that if you're going to make the sport better and more professional, that interest has to come from outside to generate more interest, create a bigger environment for us to be able to work in and therefore take shooting forward.
Great Wall have become the first Chinese car manufacturer to launch a vehicle on the UK market, with their Steed, a 4x4 that is aimed specifically at the shooting market. Ben Bruce went to check it out.
We're here today at the press launch of the Great Wall Steed, or at least we thought we were, and then they gave us the keys. So now it's time for a drive of the Steed, or as I've come to call it, the number 64. The Steed is the first Chinese vehicle to be on sale in the British market, not just the first 4x4. And the price really does make it a serious option for the stalker, or for a gamekeeper, or just basically anyone who lives in the country environment. With prices starting just over £13,000 for the basic model, which is a massive shy away from the usual sort of £20,000 that you would be paying for a vehicle of its ilk. It is a serious, genuine contender. It's got all the mod cons, as you would expect in a new vehicle. Electric windows, electric mirrors, electric chairs, and an MP3 player for all your fox calling needs. Yeah?
Unusually for a car company, we've targeted the shooting audience because we think the car really appeals to them. It's got great off-road ability. You can select four-wheel drive without having to stop. It's got low range as well. It's well specified, as I said. You can carry a reasonable amount of kit in the back. It's got leather seats, so it's easily wash-proof and washed out. And of course the price is great value, and I think that the shooting fraternity are a canny lot, and they'll find the $13,998 retail price really appealing. We've got 25 shows lined up between now and the end of the year. Nearly all of them are agricultural or shooting associated. If you go to our website, you can see a list of events, and we'd be delighted to see you in person at any of those shows to show you the Steed personally.
Another piece of news you might have seen over the weekend came from Kenya, where 5 suspected poachers were shot by the Kenya Wildlife Service. Poaching is still a massive problem in Africa, and since 2010, Sporting Rifle magazine has actively sought to help the Save the Rhino fund at Umkuzi Game Reserve, KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa. Rhino poaching is still a massive problem in Africa, one that has seen a sharp increase in the last few years. This year already, 17 rhinos have been poached. There are also the associated problems of other animals being caught in the snares used to capture rhinos, which can distress, maim and kill. Sporting Rifle have been holding an auction where people have been able to bid on a number of items and activities, with the proceeds heading to the reserve to help the rangers fight against poaching. Around about 10% of the world's Chinese water deer population live in the UK, with most of that number originating from Woburn Abbey, having escaped from the park during the Second World War. Phil Fisher from Yorkshire was the lucky bidder who won the right to join Paul Childerley, the head keeper on the estate who's been responsible for most of the medalled Chinese water deer shot in the UK.
Started off like everyone else, your ferreting and air rifle, then did a bit of game keeping and obviously shotgun and game, pheasants and partridge. And then I've only been deer stalking for 6-7 years. But if I have to pick one, it'd be the deer stalking, because it's like today, it's just an adventure. And obviously every species, red in the Highlands in Inverness, I went 2 years ago, and muntjac stalking in Norfolk, it's just all different. I just love it. And obviously the banter as well helps.
And the scene was set for Phil to take to the fields. The weather, however, had different ideas, and thick mist set in for the morning.
Woke up this morning, it was thick fog. When you didn't see any, but now the sun's out and we're seeing some. But then that makes the day, doesn't it? It makes it a bit more exciting.
With the skies clear, it was back into the fields as Phil and Paul finally found the herd and found their deer. Our cameraman, however, missed it. But Phil didn't seem too disheartened. In fact, everything had worked out better than expected.
The wife be happy because I'll be in good time at home, look after kids.
All that's left now is for Sporting Rifle editor Peter Carr to explain more about the rationale behind the auction.
The Save the Rhino fund in Sporting Rifle was an initiative that I'm quite proud of. It's raised a considerable amount of money for Save the Rhino, and it proves that sportsmen, stalkers, hunters can raise money and put it towards conservation. You can be a hunter and a conservationist.
As I've already confessed, I don't know a lot about shooting, so the first person who's going to offer their expert advice to me is this guy, Robert Bucknell.
Shooters buy technology to try and give them an edge on the fox. And night vision is seen as one way of getting away from lights and steal a march on your quarry. Digital technology is gradually taking over. The kit is nowhere near as good as top quality night vision, but it's, relatively speaking, half the price. If you wait for the perfect piece of kit to turn up, you'll never buy anything. Buy the best that you're happy with and can afford now.
And each week we're going to have a different expert from the shooting community, offering me and you their hints and tips. Now though, it's time for me to do my best Trevor Mcdonald impression as I say, and finally. Now this is the part of the show where you, the audience, can get involved. We want you to send us your clips from the world of shooting, be they weird, be they wonderful. And first person to do so is James Marchington, who sent us this fantastic footage of a fox and her cubs that he captured on his trail camera. That's it then for the first show. Next week, I'll have my very first clay shooting lesson. Tim Pilbeam will be on hand to offer his pearls of wisdom. And I'll also be taking a visit to the Royal Artillery Barracks, the scene of this year's Olympic Games shooting event. Until then though, we'll see you next week.